Hey, it's Dave from Not So Ancient Chinese Secrets, and today I'll be reviewing this GoPro Session gimbal from Feiyutech. More specifically, it's the Feiyutech FYWGS 3-axis wearable gimbal that's made for the Hero 4 and Hero 5 Session little cube cameras. So what is a 3-axis gimbal and why would you ever want one? A 3-axis gimbal has 3 motors, which not only keeps your camera level to the horizon, but also works in concert to take out the jitters when you're moving around your camera. You might ask me, hey Dave, but the GoPro Hero 5 Session already has a built-in electronic image stabilizer, so why would you need the gimbal? Great question. In my initial review of the GoPro Session 5, I mentioned that I had purchased it so that I could shoot my first-person view of me shooting weddings for when we're teaching other photographers. What I found was when my GoPro was sitting on my shoulder strap would pull up and I had this horrible view of the sky. And so I was thinking to myself, well, how could I fix that? Easy, have a gimbal. And so whether my strap goes up or down, my camera will always be facing forward. Ta-da! Besides keeping the camera face forward and level, there's 3 other reasons the motorized gimbal beats the built-in image stabilizer. The Session's built-in stabilizer is electronic or digital, and how it works is by taking away the outer edges of your frame to stabilize the footage. The problem with that is that you're going to be narrowing your field of view, so if you're shooting something, you're not going to get that expansive wide-angle view that you might want. Another byproduct of enabling the built-in image stabilizers is the fact that you don't have access to all of the Session's frame rates and resolutions. For example, when you're shooting in 1080p, you don't have the ability to shoot at 90 frames a second. It drops down to 60 frames a second when you have the electronic stabilizers on. And that means you can't get the best slow-mo footage when the electronic stabilizer is on. And the third reason the gimbal really beats the built-in electronic stabilizer is because it just works way better. You can handhold this baby and jiggle it and wiggle it, and it's amazing that this technology can come in such a tiny little package. So what's included? The Feiyutech comes in this wonderful zippered case. In the box you'll find the gimbal, 2 sets of batteries, the charger. They also give you an additional GoPro mount. Another nice touch is that include 2 standard GoPro T mounts. That makes it compatible with a wide range of GoPro accessories. There's also a very strange USB dongle that's required to connect to your computer and do any future firmware updates. And of course there's the very poorly translated manual, but the one thing that is missing that I don't really miss is the actual power source to plug this into the wall. But it's not really a big deal since most of us already have USB chargers lying around. To mount your Session, all you need to do is loosen 2 screws, push the GoPro in, and then clamp down by just screwing the thumb screws. And I like that there's no need for any tools, and you just finger tighten, and it's strong enough to keep that in place. The Session's really light, but it doesn't hurt if you were to balance it so it doesn't tip forward or back. So I'm just gonna loosen mine again until I find the right spot where it kind of looks like it's already balanced. There we go. And if the Session without the power turned on is going to stay level, then the motor doesn't have to work as hard, which means you'll get more battery life. The battery is equally easy to install. Just loosen the thumb knob, install your batteries, and replace the door. There's only one button, which makes it really easy to use. Press and hold for 2 seconds, it turns it on. Pressing and holding for 3 seconds turns it off. When you turn it on, the default mode is what they call the panning mode. That means when I turn to the left or the right, it slowly follows me to the left or the right, but it keeps it perfectly level with the ground even as I rock it. You can enter into pan and tilt mode by pressing the button twice. And as its name suggests, I not only can pan left to right, but when I point it upwards, it slowly goes up. I point it downwards, it slowly looks down, following my movements. There's also a lock mode that you can get to by pressing and holding the button for 2 seconds. Now it's going to be locked in the direction that I initially had it set in. So it does not pan and it does not tilt with me at all. In lock mode and in panning mode, you can physically change the tilt by grabbing your GoPro gently and aiming it up or down and holding it there for a second. It locks in position and continues to stay in that position until you reset it. For really low shots, there's also an inverted mode, and you get there by pressing the button 3 times. If your gimbal ever gets out of whack and is aimed up or down or isn't doing what it's supposed to do, you can initialize the system by first pressing and holding for 3 seconds to turn off the gimbal, place it on a stable, flat surface, and then turn it on with a 2-second press. Now don't touch it until the blinky lights stop and you're reinitialized. There's a lot to like about the Phaotech gimbal. First, there's the size and weight. With the batteries and the Session installed, it comes in at a whopping 0.67 pounds. So it's just really nice and light even if you need to carry it around all day. Phaotech calls it a wearable gimbal, and I'd agree. Though it's not as tiny, of course, as the Session itself, it adds minimal bulk to get you a maximum return of stable footage. Another thing I really like about it is the build quality. Besides the button, everything else seems to be made out of metal. And the 3 brushless motors are really quiet, though not silent, and we'll talk more about that later. Phaotech was also really generous in giving multiple mount points. There's a 1/4" 20 on the bottom as well as the back, as well as those T-bars that you could add on to make it GoPro compatible. Battery life is also great. Phaotech claims 3 to 4 hours on one set of batteries. That's about double the runtime of the Session itself. And there's really nothing to complain about because they include an extra set of batteries and a great portable charger. Even if you run out of batteries, another great thing about it is that it takes standard CR123A batteries. They're not going to be as easily found as your AA's or AAA's, but most electronic stores will carry it, so if you're in a pinch, you can always grab a whole bunch of those and record for days with your gimbal. Nothing's perfect, and there's a few things out of the box that really frustrated me. The first thing I wanted to do was put on the T-clamp so I could mount them onto my existing GoPro accessories. The T-clamp itself is great. It's full metal construction and well engineered. The problem is the little tiny machine screws and their weak metal. While mounting my T-clamp to the rear side, I stripped a screw, so it rattles now and I can't tighten it any further. And you might be saying to yourself, Dave, that's your fault, you stripped the screw. Well, and I would agree with you most days, but that is not the end of my problems. I was scared out of mounting another T-clamp to the base, so I decided to just use my Manfrotto ball head and put it into the included 1/4" 20 standard camera socket. That's when I realized that their mounting screw hole was too shallow, and so there's a gap between my ball head and the gimbal. No bueno. So although it seems well thought out to have multiple mount points, both mount points are very poorly executed. Another negative to the system is the fact that the mounting bar for the Session obscures the USB-C plug. And that means you can't power the Session via the USB cable or use the optional GoPro USB-C mic adapter while you're using the gimbal. Another pet peeve, in use, I found it really easy to bump the arm into the gimbal itself. If I turn it a little bit too much, it hits to the side. I've also found that when I do bump it, I can make it freak out quite a bit. Like that. And the only way to fix that is to turn it off. Another con to using the gimbal is the fact that it makes your Session more fragile and is no longer waterproof. So instead of having this indestructible little cube in your pocket, you kind of have to be careful with how you maneuver the actual gimbal and the fact that you can't use it in snow, rain, or of course underwater. The 3 motors are pretty quiet and you really have to put your ear up to it to hear a lot of the noise. But the problem is that the Session is mounted right beside the motors. And this is a non-issue if you're in a noisy environment, but if you're wanting to vlog and talk to your Session's microphone, you're gonna find that there's gonna be an underlying noise now because of the motors. Not necessarily a con, but an unknown is the support from Phaotech. The manual mentions going online for firmware updates, and I tried doing that, but there was nothing available. That wouldn't be a problem, but there were some settings that you could only control via the software. For example, if how fast the pan follows you. The default is fast, but there's also a slow and a medium, which apparently you can access on your computer, but I can't figure how. Enough lists and theoretical talk. Let's talk about real world use and how this gimbal performs. In short, it's incredible. I took this gimbal out for a test drive during my boys' volleyball tournament. And I wasn't trying very hard, but I was really impressed with the footage. For the volleyball gameplay, I just stood by the sidelines and raised my super simple selfie stick. I don't have to worry about being perfectly upright because the gimbal corrects that for me. I was bored during their lunch break, so I flipped the camera and walked around with my selfie stick. Ultimately, I've never gotten such great footage so effortlessly than from the Phaotech and Session combo. So from my cons list, you know by far this is not the perfect gimbal. But what really speaks for itself are the results. In use, I couldn't believe how easy it is to get amazingly smooth shots. Of course, it's just the GoPro's wide-angle lens, but I've never had such cinematic footage that I've been able to play with before. So although it's far from perfect, I'm amazed at what buttery smooth footage I can get in such a tiny, powerful package. Gimbals like this used to cost tens of thousands of dollars, and the fact that we can get this sent to us on Amazon for a couple $100 is incredible to me. Whether you're a hardcore mountain biker, a sports enthusiast, or just a parent like me, I think everybody who wants smoother, better, more cinematic footage from their GoPro could benefit from a gimbal like this. As always, links are in the description below, and for the latest updates to this and more gadget goodness, subscribe and visit us on the web at notsoancientchinesesecrets.com. This is Dave signing off till next week. Happy shooting and God bless.